What if the reason you're not getting strategic partner referrals has nothing to do with your network and everything to do with how you think about it? Because most advisors approach strategic partnerships like a transaction, when in reality, the best partnerships are built on something far more valuable, a solid process and trust. Because at the end of the day, people don't refer advisors they know, they advocate for advisors they trust. And today, we're going to show you how to build that trust. Let's get started.
This is The Rare Advisor, a show for financial advisors who want to build and grow their practice through the use of a business model supercharged by recurring and repeatable events. The Rare Advisor is brought to you by the Advisor Protocol Consulting Team at USA Financial.
Welcome back to another episode of The Rare Advisor. I'm your host, Aaron Grady, and with me today is my friend, teammate, frequent Rare Advisor co-host and contributor, and practice management consultant at USA Financial, Alan Orline. Alan, thank you again for spending some time with me today.
Always a pleasure, Aaron. Thanks again for having me.
Today, we're going to take a little time to focus on a topic that I know is important to you and is important to me. It's one that comes up quite a bit with the advisors we work with. But honestly, it's probably one of the ones that are the most misunderstood when it comes to growth strategies in this business. It's the idea around strategic partnerships, but not in the way that most advisors think about it. Let's start here. When most advisors hear the term strategic partners, what do you think they think? Where do you think they're missing the mark?
So you're right. This is a common thing that comes up among our conversation with advisors. So typically, they seem to treat strategic partners like it's more of a lead source, right? Like, who can send me clients? Who should I build referral relationships with? How do I get in front of centers of influence? And really, that's the problem, because that mindset immediately turns it into a scoreboard where they look at it like it's a transactional relationship, right? Like, I do this for you, you do this for me. I've sent them 10 referrals and I haven't gotten a single one back. And again, that type of mindset immediately kills the relationship before it even starts.
Exactly. There's that tit for tat is an awful way to try to approach this concept. It shouldn't be about keeping score. It should, in my opinion, be about building a relationship.
Yes.
Ultimately, strategic partnerships are not about sharing business. Ultimately, they're about sharing trust. Trust with the strategic partner, and eventually trust with your clients, right?
Absolutely. And it's really such a different frame of mind to have that thought process.
It could almost be considered everything when it comes to this concept, because look, when you shift from how do I get clients from them to a mindset around how do I serve my clients better through them, it changes everything.
Absolutely. But also keep in mind and understand that trust doesn't come from just one meeting. I mean, just like when you're meeting with prospects and initial clients, it doesn't come from just that one interaction. It can take quite a bit of time to build that level of trust.
Absolutely. It's a great point. It comes from consistent experience over time. It's a process. We talk about it a lot. Everything's a matter of process, right? And this process has some steps to it. And we're going to talk more about that a little bit today. We'll circle back to that a little bit later in the conversation. But let's shift gears right now and let's start laying out the process, starting with where do you find good strategic partners?
Sure, absolutely. So the best place to really find strategic partners, let's start where it's not. It's not networking events. It's not LinkedIn. It's not even cold outreach. Really, the best strategic partners are already in your world, and it's coming from your very best clients. It's the professionals that your best clients already know and trust.
That's such an overlooked idea. Yeah, I can't even tell you how many times I've had this conversation with advisors, and it seems like a light bulb going off. Because think about it. Your best clients are already working with accountants, attorneys, bankers, other insurance professionals. And if your best clients already trust them, you already have a natural bridge to a potential relationship.
Right. Absolutely. So instead of going out and hunting and prospecting, you're really uncovering what already exists.
you said it great there. You're looking for patterns,
Right.
When you start uncovering, we start having these conversations with your clients, you start looking at their attorneys and CPAs and mortgage brokers and insurance agents. You're looking for who shows up multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
Who do your clients rave about, which is a big one. If they're already advocating on this person's behalf, that they've got a great client experience. And you're looking for who aligns with your standards. That synergy is very important because look, it's not about building a list. It's not just simply about building a list. It's about building a short list of the right people you would trust with your very best client relationships.
Right. So that really begs the first question. How do you know if someone is actually a good strategic partner?
That's a great question. I typically start here, using a simple but powerful framework. It starts around three things: actions, attitude, and advocacy. And I love the alliteration, right? The three A's: action, attitude, and advocacy.
So that sounds fantastic. So if you don't mind, break that down a little bit more for us.
Yeah. So actions, when you think about actions, it's how do they serve their clients? How do they run their business? Do they deliver a great client experience? When you think about attitude, it's how they think about advice and relationships. Do they respect what you do? Do they think like a professional, or are they more of a product seller? And then lastly, advocacy, their ability to communicate your value. Can they actually articulate what you do and your value? And will they speak about you with confidence? Mm-hmm. Because a bad referral, and this is something to really take note of, because a bad referral doesn't just hurt a client, it damages your credibility.
Yes.
Because when you refer somebody, they become a direct reflection of you.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's take it to the next step. You say you've identified someone, and what's the next step from there, right? Most advisors and strategic partner meetings are pretty informal. It starts with, hey, let's go grab a cup of coffee. Let's have a quick conversation. There's not really any sort of built-in structure there, right?
Yeah, this is an important part of the process. And I think you're right. I think this is where the problem lies, because professional respect is created through process, and professionals respect a process. So when we teach this concept to advisors, we teach something very different than what most people would do. We don't pitch. Mm-hmm. We don't ask for referrals. We don't just grab a cup of coffee and see what happens.
Right.
We treat this experience, this process, exactly like we treat client relationships. We typically look to make a warm introduction, often via a mutual client. We set a formal meeting, and we define a fit process with an actual agenda. And I know that sounds crazy. An actual agenda in a meeting with another professional.
Right. And honestly, that's huge. And I can see how that will immediately create that contrast. And ultimately, it positions you as that professional instead of just a typical solicitor, right?
Well, and look, that's the intent. We're trying to position the advisor in a different light. Mm-hmm. It's not, I'm asking something of you. I'm looking to create something. And here's the key. This first meeting is not about doing business. This first meeting is simply about determining if there's even a fit to work together. And there's not any decisions that are going to be made at this meeting. Just like we talk about with client meetings, this is really a table setting, a foundational moment in a potential long-term relationship.
Absolutely. And just that thought there immediately lowers the pressure, lowers that barrier to entry, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's a different psychological approach. No expectations going in or coming out. And it increases professionalism, because now you're not asking for referrals. Mm-hmm. You're evaluating a relationship.
Yes. All right. So let's say that the meeting goes great. Now what happens?
So this is where in this process, you've built the list and you've taken that next step. You've had the meeting. This is where most advisors completely drop the ball.
Yeah.
They follow up once or twice. Maybe they grab lunch. and then absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
They expect advocacy without ever building a relationship.
Yep. So the next question that comes to mind is, what does it actually take to turn that partner into a true advocate?
Yeah, it's just like any of you think about it through the same lens as if we're talking about your very best clients,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's some of the very same answers, which is why I love this part of the Pareto methodology, is because a lot of the things that we do in other areas of the practice management is the same concepts, just with a different lens of who you're speaking to. And so follows the same track. Just like if you're trying to drive advocacy with your very best clients, it requires consistency.
Mm-hmm.
It requires structure and personal connection. And to do so, you're going to need to probably build a service matrix for your strategic partners, just like the one you built for your very best clients.
Right. And so that's a pretty big shift, because you're not just checking in, right? You're delivering more of a designed experience.
Yes, I love that whole thought. Just checking in. This is an important distinction. The bulk of advisors who try to develop or cultivate strategic partners do exactly what you say. It's I create an initial relationship, and then I periodically check back and just hope that magically this unwatered garden is going to bear fruit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not the case. And so think about what this looks like. This is what a true service matrix for a strategic partner should or could look like. And these are some things you could do, and you could add other elements, but this is typically some of the bare minimum that we would say.
Right.
Add some call rotations. These aren't business calls. These are relationship calls. So you can stay connected on a personal level. Find out when, what their likes and interests are. And maybe start sending them some articles of interest, or send them some magazines, based on what matters to them, not you, but what matters to them, and showing that you're paying attention to their interests. We talk about moments of truth for your clients. You can do the same thing for strategic partners. Recognize life events, birthdays, milestone anniversaries, personal wins. Look, you both are struggling, you both are building a business as an entrepreneur and as a business owner. And so you guys share common ground. Use and leverage those opportunities to deepen and widen the relationship. Have some biannual meetings. Mm-hmm. Reinforce your shared approach and values. And don't leave it to chance. Set meetings actually on the calendar. Say, hey, I want to make sure that we always stay in touch. I understand what's going on in your business. You have a good sense of what's going on in mine. And here's the big one. Invite your strategic partners to events and experience. Create memorable interactions beyond business with your best clients. If you're hosting ideal client events, if you're hosting a summer barbecue, invite them along. Make their faces not just, someone they see in a meeting every once in a while. Make the face that your clients get used to seeing. I think this is a big step forward.
Right. So this kind of becomes a relationship by design, right?
100%. If you wing it with strategic partners, they assume you're going to wing it with clients as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about the phrase that you use all the time, the whole concept of a two-way street, right? How does this actually turn into introductions?
So this is where everything really starts to come together. If you do all this right, you introduce your clients to a great professional, mm-hmm. which is a win. The strategic partner enhance your client experience, which is a win. And your clients win because they have this new person involved in their financial planning life. And as a byproduct, the strategic partners will introduce you to people. And when the strategic partners understand your process, trust how you treat people, experience your consistency, and feel personally connected to you. Let me reiterate that. When your strategic partners understand your process, trust how you treat people, experience your consistency, and feel, this is an important one, feel personally connected to you, they don't just refer you, they start advocating for you.
Absolutely. So you don't build strategic partnerships to get referrals. You really build them to deliver better outcomes for your clients, right? The referrals are simply the byproduct. And that's honestly just such a different way to think about growth.
Yeah, you said it great. It's not growth through marketing. It's growth through integration. And it only happens when relationships go beyond business.
Right. So if an advisor is listening right now, what should they actually do next? What's the action plan here?
So here's a simple outline you could follow. And this is where I would start. So if you're going to start here, this is what it would look like. Start with your best clients and start having some better conversations in those meetings. Start asking about their accountants, their lawyers, their bankers, their insurance agent. Ask, do they enjoy the experience? Would they refer them to others? From that, start taking some inventory. Who are they already working with, and who are the ones that they really, really care about or like or would advocate? You want to identify those, those gems in that group, in that list. Mm-hmm. And then from that, once you've started building that list from your clients, identify patterns. Who shows up multiple times? So who's using the same attorney? Who's still using the same CPA? Who's using the same mortgage broker or the same banker? From that list, narrow that down to build a short list of quality over quantity. Mm-hmm. We're talking maybe 5 to 10 professionals per category. And I know 5 to 10 sounds like a big number. And for some, it may be, look, you're only maybe finding 2 or 3 in each category, but you want to have a good starting point, and starting with a warm introduction this way is probably the best. From there, you would initiate a fit meeting, remember, with structure and intention. Mm-hmm. And then once a relationship is built, and there's more to that side of it. And if people are interested, they can connect with us and we can talk more about what happens in those individual meetings and how do you actually connect in the language you would use with the strategic partner. But once that relationship is established, build a service matrix. Treat them like one of your top clients and focus on the relationship first. No expectation, no scorekeeping, because if you're trying to grow your business by chasing referrals, you'll always be chasing.
Right. But if your goal is to build real relationships, by building a network of trusted professionals who help you deliver that better client experience, then
you just don't grow. You become indispensable, and you create something far more powerful. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, people don't refer business. The truth of the matter is they refer trust.
Yeah.
Thanks again, everyone, for listening to the Rare Advisor podcast again. If you found this episode valuable, make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss future conversations designed to help you refine your practice, elevate your client experience. And as always, when the why is clear, the how becomes easy. So never lose sight of your why.
This information is for licensed financial professionals only and is not intended for use in soliciting sales from the public. The views expressed represent the opinions of the presenter or their featured guest, not necessarily those of USA Financial or its affiliated subsidiaries. Industry references are generic and not intended to represent actions or beliefs of any individual or entity. Content is only presented to illustrate general principles, beliefs, or ideas and should not be construed as legal or regulatory advice. Trademark and copyright protected. USA Financial and Affiliates.